What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Classic Octane. I am Taylor. This is going to be a quick, not so much a how-to as much as an informational video on an issue I recently discovered on a customer's bike. I'm going to walk you through what the problem was, how I figured it out, so that if you guys run into the same thing, you can quickly diagnose it on your own. So let me walk you guys through what we found. So this is a CB500 that I did a complete Moto Gadget M unit install on a couple of weeks ago. I actually did a how-to video on this bike as well. I'll throw a link to that in the description below. So I was out riding this bike, typical test ride. Everything was going great until all of a sudden the horn started to honk. And it's like, well, it's, obviously pretty strange. I'm not hitting the button. I don't know what's going on. It would honk for a second and then turn off. Maybe 5 or 10 seconds later, it would honk again and stay on for a couple seconds and then turn off. It was the exact kind of behavior that I would expect to find if we had a short on our horn signal wire somewhere in the system. If you're not familiar with M units, they're just looking for a ground signal on any one of these inputs, and then it's going to go ahead and turn on power from the output. So it's just looking for a ground signal, which means if our wire running to the horn input, maybe it chafed through on our handlebars and started to ground out, that could cause an intermittent honking of the horn. So that's what I naturally went to, but I couldn't find any of those issues whatsoever. And that's when I discovered an interesting thing that was happening when the bike was actually running and I was looking at the M unit itself. So on the M unit, there are little LEDs next to every single input and output circuit. Those are just there for a visual reference of, hey, we're getting a ground signal on the left turn signal, and then boom, you're getting an output on the left turn signal. So it just lights up as each one of these components is activated. And what I noticed is when the horn was honking randomly, we were getting an LED on the output side, but we were not getting the LED lit up on the input side. So what that told me is that it was not a short in the signal wire, because otherwise that light would be on. The M unit itself must be honking the horn for some reason. So I turned to the manual, poured through every single page of this manual that comes with the M unit, and nowhere in here can I find anything about why the M unit would be honking the horn on its own. So I decided to do a Google search. That's where I found the technical articles from the guys over at Revival Cycles. If you're not familiar with Revival Cycles, they're actually a local motorcycle shop here in Austin that not only do they build a bunch of cool bikes, but they're also one of the #1 Moto Gadget dealers here in the US. And they have some really cool how-to and really good technical articles that I will link below. But that's what pointed me towards what was actually going on with our system. So the M unit has a warning system built into it for when it detects over voltage. I'm not exactly sure what the over voltage threshold is set at, but I would assume it's somewhere 15 plus volts. If it sees that, it will honk the horn. And that is an incredible safety feature, because if you have a lithium ion battery, which I would venture a guess that most people that are running an M unit are probably also running a lithium ion battery. If you overcharge one of these, they can overheat and actually catch on fire. And a lithium fire is no joke. I don't know if you remember like a couple of years ago when those Samsung phones were like forbidden to be on airplanes because they would catch on fire. It was like that big of a deal. Lithium fires are very difficult to put out. It's not something you want to mess with by any means. So that's why that system is in place, to warn you, hey, I have way too much voltage, shut the system off immediately and figure out what the problem is. 9 times out of 10, the problem is probably going to be bad grounds. So maybe you did the install months ago and all of a sudden you're grounding, your little nut and bolt. Maybe that worked its way loose and it's, getting a little bit extra resistance there. Maybe it's developed some corrosion, something like that. In my case, it was actually a faulty voltage regulator rectifier. So I have a modern one on here. This one is brand new, but at some point in the last month or so of me test riding this bike, this unit failed. And when a voltage regulator fails, it can kind of go one or two ways. One is it won't charge the battery at all, which is the safer route. Or what happened with this is it was just giving the full charging from the stator all the way to the battery. We were getting over 16 volts in our charging system. And I can't state how dangerous that is, that it can really cause some bad issues with lithium batteries. So I'm very grateful that Moto Gadget has that safety feature built in. Not exactly sure why this information isn't more readily available, which is why I'm making this video. So if you have a Moto Gadget M unit on your bike and you're out riding and your horn starts to honk randomly, do yourself a favor, immediately shut the bike off and start to diagnose it before you just assume that it's something simple like I did. I'm very lucky that I was close by and the bike didn't run for a long time. Once this problem developed, it could have been much more dangerous than it ended up being. So that's it. I told you it was going to be short and sweet, but I wanted this information out there in the public eye because I've been doing Moto Gadget installs for like 4 or 5 years now, and this is the first time I've heard of it. And again, it's not in the manual anywhere for whatever reason. So it's very important that you guys know if you have a Moto Gadget M unit, you are out riding your bike and the horn starts honking, be safe, assume the worst, shut it off, dive into your charging system, check all your grounds, make sure nothing's loose. I would hate for anybody's bike to burn to the ground for some simple problem. So I wanted to make this video. PSA, make sure to don't just assume it's a simple short. It can be something much worse. So appreciate you guys watching as always. Feel free to drop any questions or anything in the comments below, and we'll see you guys on the next one.